Brothers and sisters, so if you can pardon me, I would like to make another video today. It's a feast of Saint Charles de Foucauld, and Saint Charles de Foucauld, as some of you might know, is one of my great spiritual heroes, because of his incredible love to live an even more and more radical life for Christ, to imitate Christ as best he can. So when I feel a bit lukewarm, I just turn to him, and his life inspires me to the life of Christ, and he reminds me to keep my eyes on Christ above all else. You know, the saints really point us to Christ, and their lives are the living gospel, you could say, that just shows us the gospel in maybe our own contemporary times or in the past with some of the other more saints that are in more distant past. And Saint Charles de Foucauld is a great spiritual hero too, because of his complete love of the adoration of the Eucharist, of his experience of the sweetness of the Lord in the Eucharist, that he knows that this is the Lord, and where else should he be in his free time and in his prayer time than with the Lord, you know, already beginning that intense life of heaven on earth in its fullest expression, you could say, where yes, the Lord's in our hearts, but then we have him in this most privileged way, above all in the Eucharist, which is a foretaste of heaven, where we will be with him, not just only in the indwelling, but we will see him with our own eyes. And we begin to do this in adoration, where we see him in the Eucharist, but with faith. So I mentioned Saint Charles de Foucauld as well, because he ties into this whole theme we've been speaking about, you know, the descent, which is this real claim on humility to really humble ourselves so that we could discover the greatness of God. When we are small, then we could discover something great. As Fulton Sheen once says, it's only when someone is little do big things seem really big. And same thing with God, right? In this descent, we then discover God's amazing love for us in view of our really great need for it. And so Saint Charles gives us an amazing kind of insight into his own life. It's very hopeful to know that he struggled with the same things that we oftentimes would struggle. And I'm going to read a passage from his life that he's writing in adoration himself, commenting on Psalm 16. And he's expressing such a beautiful struggle of the saint, of someone who becomes a saint, but at least to see that they had aridities and dryness and laziness, or made errors too, and in their prayer life, etc. So let's see what he says. He says, so he's talking about, my God, my love is nothing. Increase it. Make me begin to love you. Give me a heart of flesh in place of my heart of stone. Help me love you more. May I now profit from these blessed hours, these hours of grace. So he's speaking about these times with him in adoration. So he's recognizing, we should take him at his word. He's saying, Lord, he's saying that I have a hard heart, that he can recognize his limits, his failures, that he'd love to be able to love more. So he's asking the Lord to help him love more. We get a better insight in these next words of the exact struggle. And he says, but my God, make me profit from it. In other words, from these hours of adoration. I prayed very poorly today during the day. I fell asleep in church. I had 1,000 distractions there while working. I was little aware of your presence. Is that amazing? That this is a man who's going to become a saint, but there were times where he just wasn't aware of God's presence. He was so caught up in his activities, his business, that he forgot that God was there. And this can happen to us, right? We could be so working and living our life that we forget that God is there, and that we're supposed to be trying to come back, that we're in his presence. And what a beautiful thing, right? To be able to think that I can think of God, that God is there and I can think of him, what an amazing thing to think about God. Like that is just amazing. He said, I had 1,000 distractions there while working, and I was a little aware of your presence. Okay, you were there and I did not think of you. What a tragedy. What a tragedy for us. That God is there, the incredible God, and we don't think of him. It's insane. This morning, from the first hours, I was unfaithful in not rising quickly enough. Maybe that sounds familiar. Sounds familiar for me. You gave me the grace of waking me to let me hear the Angelus, but I did not get up at once. Pardon, pardon, pardon. Pardon all these infidelities and so many others. Make me faithful this evening at least, my God, that I may stay lovingly at your feet, that I may love you, love you, love you, and that I may finish a day badly begun in the manner most consoling to your heart. So then he goes on and he says he basically then just asks the Lord he has this profound humility. He says, oh my God, how I must bless you for this understanding which comes only from you, which I have for so long been without, and which one day you gave me without my having done anything for it, but by your pure generosity, by your pure goodness of your heart. And what an infinite gift. So he recognizes that all these gifts are from God.